Hello there. Today's project is a gift for the expert, and if you don't know who that is, how dare you have not watched all my videos. A few months ago she said she wanted a Howl Pendragon jacket, and I said I would make her one, because I wanted an excuse to make a fancy Howl jacket. The plan was for it to be a New Year's gift, however... Oh shit! And I spent too long on the mock-up. My goal for the mock-up is to get the pattern down perfectly and basically end up with a colorless version of the final result. I didn't film most of the process, so I'll go through everything quickly. Can you chomp me? First mock-up was drafted out of thin air. I wanted the jacket to be oversized, so I had a lot of wiggle room to just guess. The sleeve I also just guessed, and I folded it at the top for some detail. It was too big, but I didn't really care. This is the pattern I got from that after cleaning up the length of everything. For the second mock-up, I did all the pieces. To the back piece, I added extra width to fold like I did to the sleeves, just to tie everything together. And for the front, I drew the diamond pattern on one side and actually sewed it for the other. I wasn't really happy with how the seams lined up, but you'll see how I fixed that in a bit. I prepared the sleeves by tacking down the fold, or box pleat. Same for the back. After putting that all together, I tried on. I don't know, do you think I should have made it bigger? The diamond pattern I made originally was very lopsided and a little small, so I made a new one. And boom! Front piece is done. So to be a little extra, I wanted to add gold in between the diamonds, like I saw other people doing. But of course, instead of using gold trim or lace that I can just sew on, I decided to do cording. Now I did look up how to do cording in a diamond pattern, but I'm pretty sure the answer is don't. I'll explain how I did it on the actual jacket when I have footage, but let's just say it's time consuming. I then add what will be these gold bits and some more cording at the side seams. This is all the shell together. I forgot to mention the cuffs. I basically just cut off the bottom part of the sleeve and put the pieces back together. The lining I made from cobbled together t-shirts, which is very comfortable, would recommend. I'm not changing anything about the pattern itself, but I do have some notes for the final. The cording is the main problem. It's giving the jacket a shape that I don't really like. I think it's because when I encased the cording I did it a little too tightly and it made it bend inwards. I also wanted to reduce the wrinkling of the diamond pieces, and the collar bias tape just needs to be sewn on better. I also have to remember to sew on the tape at the cuffs. I went all out on the fabric for this jacket. If I were making this for myself, I would go more matte like the animation, but the expert likes these cosplays, so I had to go fancy. I first cut out all the pink pieces, which is this very flimsy and shifty fabric that would be absolutely horrible to work with by itself. So to fix that, I used iron-on interfacing. The interfacing is pre-cut and then ironed on. All the patterns I make don't include seam allowance, meaning I always have to manually add it, but I like having the exact line I have to sew on, because I'm not good at following the measurements on the sewing machine. And having that exact mark is actually important for sewing the diamonds together later. To be extra safe, I also fray check the edges. The sleeves I at first tried to use white fabric as the second layer and not interfacing to avoid them being too stiff, but the pink is just too slippery. And even then, using the interfacing, I got wrinkles and iron imprints so bad that I had to do it again. For the cuffs, I layer this lace tablecloth over some cotton, so there's nothing plain on this jacket. I add about 5 centimeters plus seam allowance to the bottom to be able to fold that in when putting in the lining. And then I sew them on. And sew the sleeves into tubes, wrong size together, because I was worried that having to turn them would wrinkle the pink too much. I wanted to finish the edges with a felt seam, but there was no way to sew it, even by hand, so I used fabric glue. I first fold the seam allowance in half, then glue it down. I also use glue to hem the gold bands and use it to attach them to. I didn't sew them in as part of the sleeves because I personally don't like the way that looks, and I can hide the misaligned seams. Oh my god.
Look at this. Look at
Wow.
this. Huh?
Put that in the video. Dinner. And that's the sleeves ready. The collar gets the same interfacing treatment, and I cut out the lining, which I will talk about more later. I sew them together and cut away the excess lining. What the fuck? I had to recut the binding tape because the first one was way too thin. I sewed onto the pink side first, and hand sew the other side. The binding isn't the cleanest and a bit pillowy, but it's better than literally the first time I ever did binding. I don't really like how the pink side has little crinkles and waves, but I don't think that was avoidable. Next I cut out all the blue pieces, which is also a shifty flimsy fabric, and transparent. I didn't want everything to be stiff, especially the back, so I used white fabric, like what I wanted to do with the sleeves. Instead of sewing the fabrics together for each and every piece, hoping the machine doesn't shift anything out of place, I used bits of seam tape to iron them together. The way I'm putting the fronts together is making strips connected by shorter cording and then connecting those with longer cording. I didn't get pre-made cording to have all the gold be the same brocade, so I cut about 4 cm strips to cover each bit by hand. For the pieces that go off the edge, I only fold one side. The ones on the inside get both sides folded. And this piece in the corner has no closed sides. Now to actually start making those strips. I first attach the cording to one diamond. The cording should only go up to the seam allowance, and the fold that got ironed in before should be snug against the cord. I use clips for this. I don't know if this is possible with pins. I think they would distort everything too much. For this, I had to get a new foot. I don't remember if it's specifically for cording or if it's a zipper foot, but I couldn't do this with the zipper foot I already had. The mockup was actually half hand sewn because I'm cheap and I didn't want to get new equipment, but it's so much faster and cleaner with the machine.
No. Give me that. I got you.
For the longer cording, it's the same process of measuring my mockup, cutting, ironing, and encasing. The sewing process is also the same, except that I skip the part where the cording meets, and I do that by hand later. When connecting the strips, I make sure everything is lined up. Laying everything face down is the best way I found to line up everything and clamp everything. And then I had to do that over and 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 over. This tiny piece is pretty free floating, so I marked where the end should be and where the cording should meet. I then ironed the backs as flat as I can, and now I can cut out the fronts. Tracing a pattern piece on something like this is mostly eyeballing, but with the cords being the exact length they should be, I can just follow them, except for the arms and the neck hole. For these gold bits, I use interfacing on the outward facing side to possibly minimize the waviness that will happen where the extra fabric is from the cording. It also gives a good edge to fold it in half. I then sew it on, making sure to fold the top and bottom for a clean edge. Last step is to continue the diamond pattern for the bottom bit that will be visible on the inside later. I add the pleat on the back piece. And that's all the outer pieces that can now be put together. At the side and shoulder seams I add more cording, and the sleeves and collar get sewn on normally. Yeah, I think it's too small. After very carefully ironing away all the heat erase pen without damaging the fabric, it's time to put in the lining. The lining is not just one, but two shifty flimsy fabrics. The base is this slippery plastic charmeuse, and for more texture I layered some lace on top of it. To put the lining in, I first sewed the layers right sides together at the bottom, then at the sides, making sure the gold bits are on the inside and that the extended bottom part is folded over. I also pin and sew directly over the stitch where I attached the gold bits on the front panels. Then I flip everything, poking at the corners and putting the sleeves in. I line up the shoulder pleats and pin them in place. Then pin the seam allowances of the inner and outer layers separately before putting them together. I just do a simple running stitch. I pin the collar lining to the rest, making sure there's no slack, and whip stitch them together. Last step is to bedazzle. I'm quite happy with how this turned out, though it would have been much easier with other fabrics. It's probably the cleanest thing I've ever sewn with no areas that I dislike. Probably helps that I didn't take unreasonably long to make it, and that it's not in my possession anymore. The expert liked it, and it's now hanging in her closet, where, coincidentally, I am too. Thanks for watching.